Good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Thornton. I'm Director of Vendor Alliances at Bytes Software Services, and we're going to kick off today's webinar. So welcome to the Bytes CrowdStrike Falcon Complete Endpoint Protection webinar, where we're hopefully going to give you an insight into some of the innovation that CrowdStrike are driving in the security market, and what you can expect to see coming down the line from them around their Falcon Complete platform and their warranty program. So some unique messages in the market. So without further ado, let's kick off. So I just really wanted to talk a little bit about the partnership between Bytes and CrowdStrike, where it's come from, and what I believe it will deliver for both ourselves and our customers. And then I'm going to pass over to Tristan at CrowdStrike, who can go into a bit more detail about CrowdStrike as a business and their growth and evolution over the last few years. So really, when choosing partners to work with as Bytes Software Services, there's a number of different facets that we look for in a successful partnership. But I think if we look in the security space, Bytes are one of the largest security resellers in the UK, and we've maintained our role in being one of those leading resellers by continue innovating, looking at the new technologies coming into the market, the new players, what they're delivering, what's different, and ideally looking for people that have got a unique message where possible. And so about 18 months ago, when reviewing what was coming down the line, especially in the detection and response security market, CrowdStrike became very apparent to us that the technology was going to be leading the market, and more importantly, some of the new approaches that they were going to take to how they work with customers to deliver outcomes as opposed to just selling technology. That really stood out as a key benefit for Bytes and our customers. So fast forward 12 months and we started having a conversation around their Falcon Complete platform, and really for us this is a game changer in the security market. Security threats are evolving all the time. The threat landscape has never been as wide as it ever has been, and so for a vendor to come into the market with a new approach, an innovative approach to security and securing your network and your overall environment, to be able to then put a warranty behind their technology and really standing by their message and guaranteeing that if you take Falcon Complete, if you work with CrowdStrike and supported by them 24/7, then if you are breached, to put a $1 million warranty on their technology is something that we've not seen in the market. We're not seeing any of the other vendors reacting at the moment. So I think it's new, it's innovative, it's a key partnership for us. And I'd like to think that over the coming months, we'll win some really new and interesting, unique deals for both parties. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Tristan Elder, who's going to give you a bit more of background of CrowdStrike, and then we'll kick off into the webinar itself.
Thank you, Adam. So while we're just getting our deck up on the screen, I'll just give a quick introduction to who I am and my colleague Zeki here. So Tristan Elder, I'm responsible for all of our partnerships in the European region. I'm very pleased to be invited on today by Adam and the team at Bytes, and we also have Zeki Teredi in the room with me here at our HQ in Reading in the UK. Zeki is our chief technologist for the European region as well. So I will talk a little bit about CrowdStrike, who we are, what we do, and a bit of context for why we feel we're in a position to talk to you about some of the threats, but also why we're backing ourselves and really making sure our customers understand the seriousness in which we take protecting our customer base. We'll then jump into a little bit about the specifics of Falcon Complete. So CrowdStrike, if there's any one thing you remember about who we are and what we do, it's kind of encompassed in this slide. We are the only vendor who has unified everything from prevention with antivirus through to detection with EDR, proactive managed hunting, we'll talk a little bit about that today, and then a host of other business and threat intelligence applications, from visibility on the endpoint, which applications are running, which versions, what do vulnerabilities look like, how am I going to be attacked? And that's all underpinned by our own threat intelligence, our own people out in the field, gathering information, infiltrating hacker groups from nation states, hacktivists, e-criminals, and this is open source and closed source intel gathering. That's really the foundation for the house that we have built. So we're the only vendor to deliver all all of this cloud-based through a single agent and a single UI. So within each one of these red circles, there are many beyond this, but we have multiple competitors. And what I'd say the power of CrowdStrike truly is the platform. The way in which we've grown as a business over the last few years has been fairly interesting. This is actually a picture of our architecture. So should you become a Bytes and CrowdStrike customer, deployment is really very straightforward. We have a single agent. It sits on the endpoint, and for us, endpoint is desktop, laptop, or server. And what it's doing is gathering information about exactly what's being executed at kernel level on your machine. And because we've spent engineering time and effort to allow easy deployment at kernel level, should you, business as usual, or time of crisis as a new customer, want to roll CrowdStrike out to protect or investigate an incident, it is literally seconds to deploy, no interaction with the user, and it is very easy to quickly be up and running and protected by CrowdStrike. We've been growing as a business. We have had I don't say this to gain bragging rights, it's really to give you an idea that the market's responding and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We've just had another $200 million round of funding, which takes us to just under $500 million, valuation in excess of $3 billion, and we're growing significantly. So US organization, but headquartered for Europe out of the UK, hence why our relationship with Bytes and growth in this market sector is so critically important for us. So a lot of information about the company, what we do and how we do it, available through our colleagues at Bytes. But before I hand over to Zeki, I just want to give you one example of the ease of how we can work together. I had one example where, probably the most powerful example, soon after I joined CrowdStrike, our executive team contacted me probably about 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon and said our intelligence team had found intellectual property from a large organization in Central Europe that was being traded on the dark web. We believed it was legitimate, and we presented that information through one of our local partners back to that organization at executive level. Said there's no strings attached. This is what we found. We're here to help you if you want, but you need to know that someone is trying to either trade legitimate information or they are impersonating and creating duplicates of your IP. Organization, they came back to us and stated this was legitimate IP and they had a breach. They were not a CrowdStrike customer at this point. I jumped on the phone with the CISO and CIO at 9 a.m. the next morning. We'd agreed a way forwards with our partner. By 10 a.m. we'd started deployment. By lunchtime we'd finished deployment, and actually within 9 minutes of the first agent going out to the first machine, we'd identified a Chinese nation-state threat actor. By the end of that day, so 4 p.m., it also identified one Russian and then a second Russian-backed nation-state threat actor. They didn't know the others were in there. They were tripping over each other, and they were trying to get their way to the seed data for two-factor authentication. So at that point, we said we can see what they're doing. We can see the attack in progress. With our intel, we know who these people are. We know what the intended outcome is. Let's stop it there and flip into incident response mode and make sure we can help with remediation. So that's just an example. We'll talk a lot today about how we can do that. But I wanted to just set the scene with try and picture between different technologies, prevention, detection, visibility, vulnerability management, how you would get to that same outcome, trying to piece together multiple technologies, multiple teams, multiple partnerships. So what we're talking to you about today, Bytes and CrowdStrike coming to the market together on this, we can deliver excellence in a single place with a single response through a single platform. So there's a lot more. I get very excited. I'm probably talking a little bit too fast. So if you have any questions other than what we talk about today, you'll know where to reach myself and Zeki, and importantly, to channel everything back through Adam, Luke, and the team across at Bytes. So what I'll do at this point is hand over to Zeki Teredi, our Chief Technologist for the European region, who'll run you through a little bit about why this is important and the sort of concerns we're hearing from our customers, which I hope will resonate. But as we go through Q&A, please let us know if there are topics you want us to dig into.
Thank you, Tristan. And that was a great use case of the speed and capabilities of the Falcon platform. So what we want to do was explain some of the things and the reasons behind designing and creating the EPP Complete platform. Now, when we go and speak to organizations throughout the world, what we're hearing is the biggest business concerns they have is the skills gap, not able to have enough resources or individuals trained up to understand what a cyber threat is and to help defend their organization. Of course, businesses are very, very much worried about loss of customer trust or reputation if they do have an incident or a breach. And every organization wants to reduce the overall risk and most importantly, be able to take those operational costs and reduce them as much as possible. Now, when we take those concerns and move it into more of a technical aspect, majority of organizations are very concerned today about spear phishing campaigns, traditional malware threats, but most importantly, the uprising in password stealing, credential stealing types of attacks we've seen in the last 12 months, but also very, very much supply chain attacks. And the supply chain for any business is an intricate part of the organization. But unfortunately, we're seeing a huge uptick in supply chains being utilized, a way of actually getting into an organization or impacting an organization, which unfortunately a lot of companies never knew was a risk in the first place. Now, if we take a look into the threatscape, our traditional adversary landscape, majority of organizations always knew or understood who the threat actors they may be up against. Typically, if we're looking at nation states, we knew they had the utilization of 0 days or custom tooling. If we're focused on e-crime, we know they use ransomware or very, very much monetizational focused. And if we believe our organization or business is potentially going to be impacted by hacktivists or terrorist groups, we knew their core operation was simply destruction. But the reality is today, these tool sets have kind of changed. Adversaries now use a multiple variety of different tools and also have a multiple variety of core aims and goals. We're now seeing nation states utilizing ransomware and destruction techniques. We also seeing nation state adversaries now focus on monetization. So started to act very similar to e-crime organizations. On the e-crime side of things, we're also starting to see that the use of targeted attacks, utilizing 0 days, learning what the nation states have been doing and actually adapting those techniques as well. And we've also started seeing the hackers and terrorist organizations using ransomware and again, other monetization techniques for destruction or monetary gain. So we take that into mind of what today's adversary actually looks like. The reality is the lines are blurred. It's very hard for any organization to truly understand what their threat landscape looks like and the type of adversary may be after their intellectual property or just want to send some ransomware to try and use them as a monetization game. Now, if you look into the kind of landscape we've seen, 39% of the attacks we saw last year were actually malware-free attacks. So we're seeing a massive change in the landscape of where we traditionally saw traditional malware being used, we're now being seen to see more of the higher capabilities of malware-free types of attacks. The reason why this is important is malware-free types of attacks are able to bypass a lot of the traditional security solutions we've built our networks on. A lot of the security solutions we believe is protecting us, unfortunately, has no visibility into these types of attacks. And of course, we can see a variety of how this has affected different business types. But the reality is, we're probably going to see a 50-50 comparison between malware attacks and malware-free, which means we need to, as organizations, as businesses, if we are wanting to make sure we're lowering our risk and taking security seriously, make sure we have a tool set that's able to defend both sides of the fence. Now we take this information and we also look into the other types of issues we see. The reality is the adversaries today have a variety of methods and tool sets they can use. We can have the file-based malware, the malware, 0-day malware. We can use fileless and exploits. And we can also use live attacker techniques such as living off the land tools and malware-free types of technologies. The reality is it's actually very hard and very difficult with the tool sets we've traditionally used to be able to make sure that we have full visibility across the full attack sophistication and the attack types being used by those adversaries. And take on the information we said previously, such as any organization today has these capabilities available to them, means that as an organization who wants to protect our networks, we need to be able to look for the full spectrum of the attacks that we see in the wild today. Now, understand the challenge. On a recent survey done by CrowdStrike, against over 1,300 IT practitioners, we actually asked, how long does it take to detect and fully remediate a security incident? Now, on average, it was 63 hours. Now, those 63 hours could mean it could take, continuous work by a team of individuals, 63 hours of maybe having to get third parties involved, such as consultants. It could be 63 hours working 9 till 5 with huge teams of individuals trying to rectify the incident. The reality is 63 hours in the security world is a very, very long time, especially when we look into what we call the breakout time. Now, for those who don't know the breakout time is how long it takes an adversary or threat actor to initially exploit the first machine and then start moving cross-laterally within the organization. The breakout time is actually very, very important, information that we should be aiming towards. The reason why it's very important is very, very simple. If we are able to actually get to an incident, detect an incident, and resolve the incident before the adversary has been able to move cross-laterally and start impacting the network further, it simply means that incident will be a lot easier to resolve and a lot affordable to remediate than if we're dealing with a large-scale breach. The reality is, if the adversary has been able to start moving cross-laterally through your network, that means they have credential information. That means they have mapped your network, understand where they're going next. And the reality is, once they've been able to start moving cross-laterally, that adversary becomes very, very dangerous and very, very quick. And so quick, it's very hard for organizations to be able to understand fully the scope of the incident, and it becomes very problematic to remediate the incident overall. So that's why at CrowdStrike, we provide a goal to our customers. And this is what we use as an organization when we designed our EPP Complete and also our Falcon technology. To make sure that we are resolving the incident and not a full-blown breach, we have to be able to detect the incident in the first minute, be able to respond, get context, understand the scope of the incident within 10 minutes, and to make sure that we have plenty of time and able to stop the attack before the adversary starts moving cross-laterally. We need to fully remediate and close that incident within an hour. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you Falcon EPP Complete.
Thank you, Zeki. So you've got Tristan back again. What I will do is walk through EPP Complete, so that's our endpoint protection, and talk a little bit about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. So CrowdStrike has many different product sets. We have many different applications. We have many different business values that we can bring. Falcon Complete is our highest level of post-sales support to make sure that you have the ability to essentially have someone 24/7, an engineer, a SOC analyst, a forensic incident, 24/7 to take the hard work of monitoring and remediation. I'll go through some of the details in a second, but we know not all businesses have the people, the time, some of the skill sets to be able to do this themselves. So we have created CrowdStrike Falcon Complete. Some of the gaps we're trying to fill, we've seen this, quotes from our customers here, but a lot of this Zeki's been through already. A lot of CISOs concerns come from things like lack of competent in-house staff, data breaches, cyber attack continuously, employee negligence, which is a huge one, and also generic ransomware. We're seeing this hitting a lot of organizations, from small businesses with 50 employees up to large global organizations. Which CrowdStrike is architected, and we've built a true cloud-based platform, means everything I'm talking to you about today, we can offer to one of our largest global customers, right down to a new customer who might have 50 employees, for example. So we are here to make sure that we can bring enterprise security to all customers, regardless of size. We understand that your risk profile and the downside for your business is equally important to you as a large global financial organization. In perspective and proportionally, we want to make sure you have a way of dealing with this risk. So the total cost of endpoint security, sort of a traditional iceberg. You've probably seen this a few times, but it's a good way of showing what we think the important costs are. So yes, there's acquiring the endpoint security, but then there's implementing, configuring, tuning. With CrowdStrike, a lot of that cost, time, and effort goes away because our deployment is so simple and the time to value, as we call it, is almost immediate. But managing and maintaining, and then importantly, getting into monitoring and triaging alerts. So our technology, if it is standalone without our Falcon Complete team, it requires someone in a security operations center, be it one of your partners, a service provider, your own team, someone to have eyes on that, understand what the technology is telling them. What are the alerts out there? What is the context? What should I be doing with this alert to make sure that I can remediate as fast as possible? But equally, if we've got potential vulnerabilities on endpoints, which ones do I start with? Which threat actors are out there currently taking advantage of these vulnerabilities? And if I'm a SOC analyst, which ones do I recommend for patching first? So rather than the blanket approach, going in surgically saying, these are the 3 things I should do to reduce risk for my business. And what I'd like to say here is, it is hard to hire security people. There are not a great deal of sort of post-implementation SOC analysts, engineers, reverse engineers of malware, forensic incident responders. These are people that are few and far between. And also, to motivate them, they need to have access to the latest threats, see the latest campaigns. And we motivate our staff through obviously the great benefits of working at CrowdStrike, but it's also making sure they are at the top of their game and they feel like their career is progressing as fast as it possibly could. So our teams will see on minimum 600 attempted breaches per week. About a quarter of those are from nation state threat actors. So they are seeing the latest in the threat landscape. That is very hard to replicate, even if you're one of the biggest organizations on the planet and you're building your own in-house operations team. It's still hard to get hold of those people. We have global visibility of threats coming into our customers in over 176 countries, 120 billion security events every single day coming into our global cloud, which now allows our machine learning to do a lot of the heavy lifting and then escalating to humans who will dig into specific risks and take that ownership on behalf of our customers and partners. So what do we actually do? What does this 24/7 global team actually deliver? So the first thing is around the package itself. It's about prevention of risk, detection of risk through EDR, and also making sure we've got a visibility and our customers and partners have visibility of assets within the business. Where are there rogue assets? Maybe we've deployed to 1,000 machines. You think that's your whole estate. We can identify, actually, there's 1,037. So what are those 37 rogue machines? We can help to identify shadow IT. Maybe your HR teams are using bots to share CV information. With GDPR currently, that could be a risk for you. So it's about identifying both core cyber as well as generic risks to the business in line with your risk profile and what you report back up to your board. Proactive threat hunting is the next bit. We're not sitting around waiting for something to happen and then responding. We're looking at the global threat landscape. So proactively, what is coming next week based on our infiltration of threat actors? And also, what is hitting customers like you around the globe? So if we know there's a threat campaign going on in the Asia Pacific region targeting insurance, we can then say, this is what the attack looks like. Let's proactively hunt for similar attack vectors, similar tools, tactics, and procedures within the customer base. For instance, within the UK, that might have a similar threat profile. So it's about using our, the crowd bit of CrowdStrike is crowdsourcing of data. Again, this is anonymized metadata, simply describing processes and executions on your machines. So we share that view and we make sure that we take that data to make immediate decisions for you on your behalf, obviously informing and making sure we have a run book agreed, so you know what we do, when we do, and how we escalate. An important piece is also around deployment, configuration, tuning, and maintenance. So CrowdStrike, very, very straightforward. I am not technical by nature. However, I'm more than comfortable to sit around with our own instance and help customers through ease of configuration and how they should set their policies. We have a team who will take it a step further. They will look at the global threat landscape. They'll look at specific risks to that business, and they will enable an ease of deployment. So if you have custom applications and whitelisting is required, they can take a lot of that workload away and deliver you simply with the outcome that you're after. We then move into incident visibility. So again, I'm pleased to say none of our customers since CrowdStrike has started have had a publicly reportable breach. And by breach, we're talking about leaving that customer's building and being publicly reportable. So there are always security incidents going on driven by potentially malicious employees, not using malware, living off the land techniques, using things like PowerShell to escalate privileges and do mapping internally and lateral movement, for example. So we're looking at these behaviors on the endpoint, be it from a traditional malware or ransomware approach to potentially malicious employees, or someone, as we see a lot of the time, social engineering, going in with legitimate user credentials and actually working their way around a business. So it's about alerting that behavior, doing the triage and doing analysis, and then flipping into remote response and remediation. So this is a big change for us. Rather than providing guidance back to our customers and partners to say, this is what we've seen and this is the recommendation, we will actually move into remediation. So we are not a managed service provider. We're not going to re-image 1,000 machines. What we will do is identify the risk. We will kick the attacker off the endpoint. We will give all the data around it, and we will make sure that you are safe, you are protected, and there is guidance for what full remediation, if it includes hardware remediation, for example, should look like. So that's where, again, working with CrowdStrike and Byte, we don't cover the whole picture. Our partnerships pick a lot around the edge, but when it comes to core endpoint security, you can effectively outsource and have a security operations center focused on using CrowdStrike technology on protecting, defending, monitoring that endpoint, and responding if needs be to ensure that a security incident doesn't turn into a breach. And to make sure that our customers have that confidence, what we've done is actually release a breach prevention warranty. So as Adam said at the start, this is up to $1 million based upon a number of variables. So the size of the contract you have, for example. It is not an insurance policy, this is a warranty. And I'll go through a little bit about what it actually covers. As Adam mentioned, we're the first in the industry to do this in a really meaningful way. We're expecting competition to follow a little bit. They haven't so far. And I believe that's due to the track record we have and the thorough offering we have. We've really made sure this is something that differentiates and I believe puts our brand on the line to say this is how much we back ourselves in this situation, and we can bring enterprise class security to any customer that purchases our technology, as well as CrowdStrike Falcon Complete. So we'll look into things like with the warranty, ransomware, cyber extortion. We'll look at the cost of paying for forensic investigation if it's required. We can do identity theft monitoring. Again, all the costs associated with that will be covered by our warranty. Another one that often organizations don't think about is PR and crisis management. So with a lot of CrowdStrike services, we can help to prepare beforehand. We do things like compromise assessments, where we'll look at the technological response, as well as a marketing, PR, and executive response in a time of crisis. So this is for customers when they go back and the BBC are walking up to them, or they're having to do a series of press interviews and a PR campaign. That is actually quite a heavy burden. So the warranty covers that as well. Of course, legal and US terminology, breach costs. This would be involving third parties who would help with full incident response if required. And then client notification, which again may seem trivial, but where there's a large breach and your customers' details have been made public, client notification is a heavy lift. There are organizations that can support with that. And again, our comprehensive coverage through the warranty will make sure that is something that is not a hardship should it arise. And we certainly intend for that not to be the case. So this is a very comprehensive solution, and it provides everything needed to defend against and, importantly, respond to security incidents. So as I mentioned, prevention and detection. This is using the CrowdStrike platform, our next-gen AV, machine learning, indicators of attack. This is looking at future attacks. What's coming tomorrow? How can we make sure that it is not executed? We're not in response mode, we're in proactive mode, looking for future threats. We can then get into details around asset visibility, asset inventory, what's out there. Is there a new IP address that I've seen after someone's plugged something into a wall port? Not covered by CrowdStrike, but it poses a risk. We will be able to tell you that it's there. And then as you get onto the core of CrowdStrike Falcon Complete, it really is a force multiplier. So we can do everything from the onboarding, pre-implementation to implementation and post-implementation. And then very quickly flipping into traditional SOC operations. So again, we are not an MSS, we are purely focused on endpoints, and our goal and what we deliver today to small customers in size and very large customers in size globally is the ability for the pain to go away, for the customer to sleep well at night, knowing there is a crack team of people who only do this day in, day out, and they're 24/7 monitoring, triaging, and responding on their behalf. And of course, for you as the customer, all of this is immediately visible in the user interface. So you can see exactly what's going on at all times, and you have a direct line into that team. So you're able to ask questions and tweak as we go to build the relationship. And we hope over time, obviously that relationship grows, you see confidence, and more of the workload is transferred to the CrowdStrike team without oversight from our customers or partners. So very quickly, I've kind of summarized a lot of this so far, but the business value we hope is pretty clear. It's eliminating endpoint security burdens. So this is workload. This is also what we're doing with removing costs from the business, removing duplication of effort, technology. We can simplify. We can be a force multiplier to an existing security team. We can also be a net new security team for customers who may not have a security specialist. You might have 1 or 2 people who look after security, which could involve physical security, IT security, asset management. So this is bringing in a specialist team of people who are proven to deliver this in and support both net new customers who've had breaches, dealing with globally significant incident response you would have seen on the front pages, through to CrowdStrike customers and ensuring that they do not get breached. We can decrease the risk of breaches. So that is a quick summary of CrowdStrike Falcon Complete. I know there's a lot to take in terms of who we are, what we do, and how we've put ourselves on the line, our brand on the line around this warranty. At this point, I'd like to hand back to Adam and the Bytes team to make sure that any questions can be answered. I would say that I can't answer some, I will not be able to answer some questions because this may be available publicly. That said, if there are one-on-one sessions we can have afterwards, I'll be more than happy to get myself and the right people on a call or email just to answer any slightly sensitive questions that might come.
Brilliant. Thank you, Zeki, and thank you, Tristan, as well for presenting. So as mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, if you do have any questions, there is a questions box just at the right-hand side of your screen. So if you write any of your questions in there, I'll read them out for the presenters. So we'll just wait a minute or so to see if any come through.
So Amy, I think there's a couple of questions coming in. They're probably a little sensitive around details of the warranty and costing. So what I'd like to say is for those customers that are interested in some of that follow-up, I would strongly suggest that you contact your Bytes representative or Adam, Amy, Luke will be able to direct you or answer a lot of your questions, or indeed get myself or Zeki involved. And one-on-one or in a non-public forum, we'll be happy to run through some of the details around costing as well as specifics of what's included.
Thanks, Tristan. Okay, so I think there are no questions today. You've obviously done a good job and covered everything during the webinar. So thank you everyone for joining us on the webinar this morning. As mentioned at the beginning, there's a critique form at the end. So if you could fill that out, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you, Zeki and Tristan, for presenting oh, sorry, actually one question's just come through, sorry. What steps are taken to pick up new threats unknown to CrowdStrike?
Certainly, I can probably start, and Zeki will be able to pick up. So the way in which we work, we are not focused on indicators of compromise or signatures. We're very much looking at behavior on the endpoint. So for example, we don't have, last year or the year before, when there was a WannaCry or NotPetya attack, we didn't have a sort of, in inverted commas, a signature for ransomware. We understood there are only a small number of things that an attacker can and will do to execute a ransomware campaign. That at some point they will go through encryption, they will do deletion of backups. So we understand in order to go from point A to B of successful attack, there are some steps to run through. So we're looking at a huge, the volume is significant, 120 billion events per day, to look at what future attacks might be and stop them before they start. So for example, if you receive a Word document, we don't care if it's a a drive-by download. Maybe you've been sent a malicious document by someone who's phished one of your colleagues and has sent an email on their behalf. You open that document, it might then spawn PowerPoint or Notepad invisibly to the end user. That might then spawn something like PowerShell. We then see mapping of the network and actually maybe going to a malicious server or GitHub and grabbing Mimikatz, which would do credential scraping. So those things, until we get to pulling malicious software back from a server, Notepad, PowerShell, Word, these are not malicious activities. PowerShell is a required administrative tool for most organizations. So what we do is in that chain of events, we're able to see that this looks like it's an illegitimate process and it looks like there's something malicious happening. So before it gets to the stage of a third-party tool being downloaded to deliver attack, we're able to stop that again at kernel level as we see these things immediately spin up. So unknown threats, CrowdStrike is there to obviously stop the known. That is bread and butter, and we wouldn't be doing as well as we are if we couldn't do that. It's all about unknown threats and using behavioral analytics and a huge data set with machine learning trawling across it to identify what future risks might look like.
And to kind of second that as well, we actually also have a team of. Now, the idea of threat hunting is to go in and look for the unknown unknowns. Our technology is there to look for what we already know or the unknown threats in your environment. We're actually trained individuals who are intrusion analysts, looking at all your organization, looking for the unknown types of attacks that are then identified, alerted to you. And of course, once we understand them, they become added to our machine learning capabilities, our behavioral prevention, to let the technology take over.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue to wrap up the webinar. So thank you everyone for joining the webinar today, taking the time out of your busy days, and thank you Tristan and Zeki for presenting as well. The webinar was recorded today, so I'll send you all a link to the recording most probably this afternoon. And as mentioned again, there's a feedback form at the end, so if you could fill that out, we'd really appreciate that. Okay, so thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.